Hello and welcome to AUA Focus Series, a podcast channel by AUA Media Lab. My name is Shushan Avagyan, and today I'll be speaking with renowned poet and writer Peter Balakian. Peter Balakian is the author of 9 books of poems, including the Pulitzer Prize-winning Ozone Journal. His memoir, Black Dog of Fate, won the PEN Albrand Award, and The Burning Tigress, The Armenian Genocide and America's Response was a New York Times bestseller. Balakian is also the translator with Aris Sevag of Grigoris Balakian's memoir, Armenian Golgotha. He is the Donald and Constance Rebar Professor in Humanities and Professor of English in Colgate University. So the question that I guess I want to start with is your involvement in the life of the Republic. You've been, the first time that I remember that I met you and I listened to you, I heard you, was 11 years ago in 2014 when you were here at AUA with Chris Merrill,
yeah,
and a few contemporary American writers who were touring, who were doing American Writers on Tour.
Yes.
And you read your work. Some of my students translated the individual works, including yours. And since then, you've been coming and going and being very much active in the life, in the cultural life, in the literary life in Armenia. Do you want to talk
Yeah,
about
well,
that?
you know, it's good to be here and good to be talking with you. And remembering that moment in 2014 was a beautiful time when the Iowa Writers International Program was spanning the globe and connecting with important parts, countries, cultures, with kind of international missions to facilitate conversation, dialogue, community coming together through literary culture. My first time in Armenia, it takes me back while you're asking me the question to 1987, so end of Soviet era. So to have been here at the end of Soviet era was really more and more and more as my life goes, a huge event in my life because I got to see something of the earlier period and get a little taste of that paradigm before the fall of the Union and the independence of Armenia. But most of my visits have been, I would say, from 2010 to the present. I've been coming every few years when I have an opportunity. I have 2 books now being translated into Armenian. One of them is a retranslation of Black Dog of Fate. We're hoping these books will be out in the coming year, next 12, 18 months.
Retranslation? Why?
Oh,
I'm curious.
It needed it. I'll just leave it there. Okay, we needed a new edition. And I had new chapters, too, to Black Dog of Fate, which have not seen the light of day in Armenia. So we have that. And, you know, the genocide studies world has been a very active world. For me, it's been an active International Association of Genocide Scholars, an organization that I've been involved with for 30 years almost. So those events would bring me to Yerevan, especially, and to the Armenian Genocide Memorial and Museum, really such a special, powerful, sacred place. So I've had these encounters that bring me to AUA, bring me to AGMI, and bring me to other parts of the country, including Co-op up north. And so I like to be here as much as I can, you know.
Which is a very rare thing. There are very few writers, renowned writers of Armenian descent who are so involved in, you know, the life of the Republic. So it's fascinating. You're here now with another group of people from your university, Colgate University, and you're hoping to start a partnership with AUA in the region.
Right.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, this is an exploratory mission we're on this week and a bit of next week. Colgate University has a very vibrant international studies curriculum. We have study groups all over the world. and we have enough faculty who are interested and do work in their special areas: anthropology, political science, geography, theater, for me, literature, and so forth, who work and want to work more in the West Caucasus. So we are doing this kind of mission, to see where we might be able to set up a study group, bring Colgate students here to Armenia, and we're also going to Georgia next week, so maybe there's some possibility for Georgian connections as well. So this has been exploratory. For my colleagues, it's been very exciting. They're seeing things they never imagined. The ancient monasteries, the vibrancy of Yerevan. Now we come to the university to see the academic energy, and we'll do as much as we can in 5 days. We're going to cram it in. But I'm very excited about it because it allows me to feel I can help bring faculty and then perhaps future Colgate students here. And that'd be fantastic.
Which is really important because these dialogues produce, new things.
Absolutely.
New encounters. And I think
absolutely.
we have a lot to give. There is a lot to be done here. And so having these new encounters would probably produce something interesting, beautiful, potential for the future.
It seems to be. That's our hope. I mean, Armenia is a sedimentary rock of history and culture, and one can intersect with Armenia in many different disciplines, different areas. So we're excited, and we'll see what happens. And this is the opening of the gate. So
wonderful.
Thank you for having us.
We're happy about this potential. My next question, I think, refers to the writer's task.
Yeah.
Margaret Atwood counters or questions the expression that says the pen is mightier than the sword. She says, today, when we are living through these incredible wars, we're witnessing genocide, we're living in this utter sort of state of helplessness. She says that perhaps that needs to be questioned. And she says that authors have influence, but not power. So I want us to think about that. Real power takes an army, swords, not pens. We must be realistic about this, she says, if we are to fulfill the promise of our more hopeful visions of the future. How can we, as writers and translators, and I'm a translator, a literary translator, how can we influence today as writers and translators to counter this very real threat of aggression, and particularly in the Republic of Armenia, when we're living through a very real sort of threatening reality with Azerbaijan and Turkey.
I understand.
How do you envision our role as writers and translators to be more active? Because there seems to be a state of silence from the writers here who are still in shock, who are still absorbing what we've lived through, and kind of a writer's block. And we're trying to figure out what next. How do we intervene somehow?
Well, writers do have their role, and it's an ancient role. And it's a role that involves, in part, because making art is a broad reality, and artists occupy different spokes on that wheel. Not all writers are witnesses or witness writers or social present writers. No writers of literary aspiration want to be didactic or editorial or ideological. I mean, writers want to embrace complexity and the richness of any given situation, political, social, psychological, romantic, physical, whatever it is. Nevertheless, writers occupy a witnessing role if they want to be in that role. Witnessing means you engage with authenticity what's happening, that there's no romanticizing, there's no covering up, there's no fear of retribution. You own up to the witness. As Mandelstam said in the worst moments of his arrest and deportation in the early 1930s, the Stalin system had rounded him up and ended his life early, the great poet of his generation. He said, "Poetry so powerful it gets you killed." And he was referring to the growing power of language from writers during authoritarian and extreme times. And of course, we don't wish for that as writers. We don't wish to be potential fodder for the dictator's prison. But Mandelstam's point is important. It's powerful, and it challenges authority. Knowledge and literary knowledge in this context, you're asking me about what writers offer. We challenge authority with critique, with analysis, and with witness. And this scares dictators all over, wherever you are. The U.S. is in bad shape right now, dealing with the terrible threats to democracy coming from our current president. So writers have to be vigilant and have to witness. And of course, language has a big impact on human consciousness and on thought and deed, so that language can deliver reality to a broad population that doesn't get what's going on. And so getting what's going on is one of the writer's tasks, right? So we have to deliver that, and that has to be delivered to as broad an audience, a broad population as possible. From there, actions happen. Actions happen. And we need action. And resistance and the expression of a will about a crisis. So that's a place, look, there was a Velvet Revolution in Armenia in 2018, and that came out of a lot of articulation of will from people over years, Probably the whole collapse of the Soviet Union has a good bit to do with certain actors having big impacts on the will of people. Havel in Czech Republic, or Lech Walesa in Poland, and others who were intellectual actors in a time of authoritarian crisis. So that remains the responsibility of some writers.
Yeah. And of course, it's very critical to have support from outside of, beyond that immediate realm of trauma or whatnot. So, for example, the instances that you're giving example of, for instance, in Sarajevo, when there was a siege in Sarajevo, 1993, Susan Sontag flies over to Sarajevo, besieged through boarding a UN plane and coming over from elsewhere and saying, "I'm here with you." And so that is so important to have that kind of camaraderie, that kind of solidarity.
Yeah, I hear you.
That gives you wings. And so I think this kind of dialogue, which you're here for in a sense, is so important. Are the writers partnering up with the writers who are charged with that kind of role of writing the witness narrative, in a sense.
That's
witnessing.
true. That's true.
So that gesture is very, very noble. And I think it's very important. And I was thinking all these, years to 2020, 21, 22, I was thinking we need this kind of, the solidarity, and we need the word that will elevate the word that was being trying to be generated.
Armenia struggles with isolation.
So
yes, and this is really a big thing. I know. We met with a group of Armenian writers yesterday at Aravik Ashkorayan's Armenian literary agency, and I heard very much their sense of isolation. First the language is read by few people, and we want to get Armenian writers into, for starters, any language, but English, language of the planet, right? So breaking down the barriers of isolation, bring Armenia into a wider global community, and Armenia needs to be in a wider global community.
So
we got to make that happen.
Yeah, I want to say thank you from my own personal side. Thank you for being here. It is important, even if just being here, your presence in itself, the availability of your text in Armenian. That's a wonderful gesture for the Armenian writers who cannot access English. So that's a wonderful thing that we're going to have, and I look forward to the translations.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here.
Yeah, no, thank you, and I'll be back before long.